The New York City Football Club celebrates their first win of the season, and New York City FC 2 in MLS Next Pro will play in the U.S. Open Cup tonight in the great state of New Jersey. Why is the 2 team playing in the U.S. Open Cup? I don't know. It's NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer!
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Glenn Crooks. There's Roberto Abramowitz, your favorite radio commentators, certainly in the country, perhaps the world. It would be hard to classify. And
what are you drinking in Jersey?
Well, quite. I mean, there's some good vineyards here. You know, it's
You've been hitting them, I see.
It's not the Napa Valley, but there's some good stuff here. So Roberto, we both got a chance to call this game, which was as complete a game as New York City's played this year, and they were rewarded with a victory, their first of the season. And considering there are games at Cincinnati coming up this weekend, which we'll talk about a bit, and then at Miami the following weekend, 2 really difficult tussles for any team in the league to go into either of those places and win. How important was 3 points at Yankee Stadium against Toronto last Saturday?
Oh, it was huge. Absolutely huge. I know that for an early season game to say, well, it's a must win, it came as close to being a must win as we've ever seen for this team. And the reason being, the fact that the way the team had played last year, the fact that the team didn't make the playoffs last year, the fact that the team had lost its first 3 games this season, the pressure that the fans are putting on the organization as far as Nick Cushing is concerned. So tying a historic low, which was in 2020, when the team lost its first 4 games, would have been a awful thing. And the pressure would have been even higher on Nick. So if you want to blame him for the reasons that the team wasn't winning or not, or you see other reasons why the team isn't winning, it wouldn't matter. At the end of the day, they would have lost their first 4 games of the season, and 2 of those being at home with a basically complete team. So the fact that they were able not only to win, but in the manner that they won, it speaks volumes that the team needed it. And also, I think it's really important to understand that the players did things that they haven't done all season that have contributed to the fact that the team hasn't won. They hit a free kick, which they hadn't done in 75 games. That was game number 76 that they were trying for a free kick goal. So they hit a free kick goal. The first one says Goody to Robinson in 2021 that sent them on their way to win MLS Cup. They hit a cross to the box that they were able to get their head on, and they were able to put in the back of the net. And that's like the first goal that they scored since Andres Perea did last year against Toronto, by the way. And so you've got that goal. You've got that part of the game, which has not been very good. Service into the box has not been great. And when the service has been good, it has been they haven't been able to put it on frame. They haven't been able to score. So you got that part taken care of. And then they didn't panic and they didn't fold when the cards were against them. Keaton Parks got kicked out of the game in the 68th minute. No argument on that red card, as much as I thought I saw him argue. There's nothing to argue about. And it was a straight red, and it's understood that he deserved the straight red, and that was fine. But the way that the team, as Chris Berman used to say, circle the wagons. They circled the wagons.
Well, you know what?
They did a great job, and they got to win.
The thing that I noticed, and it came up statistically too. Of the shots that Toronto took, 4 of them were blocked by New York City. And I've talked to a couple of people about that in the game this week. That doesn't that indicate something? Block shots to me indicates an appetite to defend. A team that's together, and it's the kind of thing that we didn't see consistently over the first 3 games, Roberto. And so the way you depicted everything is, I think, simply put, what we saw in that game, we hadn't seen in the previous 3 games. And that's overall, going up, trailing early, 7th minute, down a goal already, again, after 3 consecutive losses to start the season, but the ability to come back, take the lead. So you score the 2 goals, 1 more goal than you'd scored the previous 3 matches. And like you said, holding on after Keaton Parks, which was a really foolish red card. I mean, it wasn't necessary. And it was 2 minutes after Kevin O'Toole's goal put them ahead 2-1. And it's one of those things where you go, oh, no. For 33 minutes, they held on. So you talked about the free kick goal. It was Santi Rodriguez, and we're going to hear your call, then my call, of that frabjous moment for New York City FC.
76 partidos en línea, sin gol en un tiro libre directo. Está casi al centro, un poco cargado a la derecha. Viene el tiro, pierna derecha y ¡gol! ¡Se rompe el maleficio! New York City con el gol de tiro libre de Santi Rodríguez empata el partido a 1.
Lo llamó Roberto, llamó al gol en ese pedido. Tanto tiempo que New York City no marcó un gol de tiro libre y anota hoy en un partido en el que lo necesita mucho el equipo. Gran gol de Santi Rodríguez, excelentemente ejecutado. No había nada que pudiera hacer Gabran, que es un buen arquero, un buen suplente.
Shooting distance for either Santi Rodriguez or Hannes Wolf, and maybe what Long knew, maybe he's read the stats, that the last direct free kick goal for New York City was Gudmundur Thorarinsson in October of 2021 in Atlanta. All right, just a slightly right of center, 25 yards from goal. Santi Rodriguez wearing the number 10, angled left. Hannes Wolf, the number 17, angled to the right. Who will take it? It's Rodriguez, and he finishes the opportunity! And there you go! New York City off the set piece and Schneid. It's Santi Rodriguez with his 2nd goal of the season, the 2nd goal of the year for New York City. And it ties the match up here in the first half. It's New York City 1 and Toronto FC 1.
Well, he must have been listening to us, Glenn, because he's obviously gone out there with a bag of balls after every single training session of practice.
Yeah, and we'll hear from Nick Cushing in a moment. That bag of balls thing is absolutely true. And it's, for me, it was just it was almost a shocking moment, considering the number of times. And look, Nick is a positive guy, and I really couldn't get him to bite too deeply into the Santi Rodriguez situation, where his free kicks have really, in general, have not been up to the standard necessary to score a goal. Into the wall, over the bar, wide right. He's really had a difficult time. So I felt good for him, because it sounds like he has been working diligently on it. So let me just play this real quick, Roberto, and then we'll talk about the whole thing. This was I asked Nick, how does he work on it? What does he do? What's the process? What's the plan?
Curious as to how the training works that way. Does he go off individually? Are there mannequins that he's trying to strike over? Are there real people? Is he with a coach? Can you paint that picture for us, how he works on it?
Yeah, I think a little bit of everything, really. I think definitely he takes the ball off on his own. He takes the bag of balls at the end of the training, and he works tirelessly. I think we then see the desire and the real hunger to want to add that to his game. So then the coaches get involved, and whether it's video, whether it's showing his technique, whether it's, buying different parts of equipment, that whether it be the different walls, the moving walls, whether it's putting ourselves in as coaches. I think, there are many different ways that you can improve. I think ultimately what we have here as a football club is really good people and a real desire to help. So whether it's the kit man out there or the coaching staff out there with Santi, we'll go out there in the morning before training or afternoon before he goes home. And, even within the 11v11 work we do in training, we'll put some direct free kicks in there so that the boys can get the feel of taking those moments in the moment.
I love it. Daniel LaRoche, the kit man out there helping Santi with his free kicks, standing there and being the wall, maybe taking a shot to the head or two. But,
I doubt that he's doing that part of it. They have the mannequins for that. They don't need to put a human there as a sacrifice.
Well, it's I mean, by the sound of it, he's been working on it, not just the week leading into this, but for quite some time now. And he must have shown something in training over that time to be constantly the guy taking it. We think Hannes Wolf, he is set up next to Santi a couple of times. I think he's only taken one, and that was over the bar. So we're still not clear as to how.
Risa took one too, didn't he?
Yeah, Risa, that might be his last one. That one went well into the bleachers. But
Andres Jason has been taking them as well. And as a matter of fact, Andres Jason said that he told me that from positions on the right side, what favors a right footer, if Santi isn't feeling it, that he would be taking those if he's obviously on the field.
All right. Well, in a little clip we'll hear a little later on, Jason is a candidate for this right back opening, and we'll talk about that in a moment. Let's get to Kevin O'Toole with the game-winning goal. Very exciting. His first goal in Major League Soccer, the two-time offensive player in the Ivy League, a former guest here on NYCFC Views. We caught him in preseason. You asked him a great question. Did he think it's his position to lose? Well, certainly it was and still is, because he's the number one fullback on the left with Christian McFarlane, number two. But this is a guy who does have an attacking mentality, and it was really nice to see him finish. Let's get your reaction after Nick talks about the way the goal was produced and how he wants his fullbacks to operate.
What struck me is where he came from to attack that service from Julian Fernandez. And I suppose you would credit the relationships they're building in the final third, but here's your left back, and he attacks that with a head ball centrally, right in the middle of the goal.
I think, there's been some moments in analysis and in the team room where we've seen, because of our structure, whether it be Thiago Martins, Bert Risa, Keaton Parks, James Sands, or Andres Pereira, when we have our two midfield players that make the game, they seem to, they tend to be in the position where that they can also offensively be defenders, which frees up both of our fullbacks. We've said we want to be aggressive with our fullbacks. We want to be offensive with them. And in the analysis room, we've seen moments when we feel we can add them into the box, but they take a defensive position. And this is not the wrong thing to do. It's the right thinking, but I want to be more risky and more aggressive. And I think you saw that from the first play of the game. Mitja Ilnic put it across the box and Kevin O'Toole nearly scores there.
Yeah, so look, you got Ilnic and O'Toole. They want to be in the area. The greatest goals, Roberto, for me over the years, I always thought the best goals, and when I started coaching 4-3-3, and I saw Santa Clara University doing this, when one fullback serves to the other and they score. They're both in the area. And that is the risk that Nick Cushing is hoping that New York City will continue to take. We'll see how they're going to play it on the road in Cincinnati. But it is a risk, but if you have the reward, and they have to score more goals. They've already said we need to score 20 more goals than we did a season ago. Not off to a good start in that department, but the fullbacks are going to play a big role.
They are. So a couple of things, right? First of all, on the O'Toole side, he saw that Keaton Parks was staying behind. And so that if Keaton Parks had gone to the box, he wouldn't have attacked the play. So he said that Keaton Parks stayed behind because he was the one who fed Fernandez on the right side. So Keaton was behind, and then he saw a space between the fullback and the center back, and he decided to attack that. Now, you have a strictly left-footed player playing on the right side. Now, this is when this is when sometimes that strategy can backfire, because when you're looking to put some service in the box, it's not exactly, he's got to be able to go and cut it back. And then, he's not going to be able to cross it with his right leg, right? So playing the English style or the old English style doesn't work when you have inverted wings. So what Fernandez did on the way he set that up, and then he put that on the outside of his left foot and served that perfectly, is just a stunning cross. That is an amazing skill play that he pulled off. And then
one of 3 on the weekend in MLS. I'll tell you who the other 2 are in a minute.
All right. But then O'Toole, thankfully being a former forward and not a full-time defender, full-time defenders have to train to get the ball out of the box, and so they're always heading the ball up for the most part. But he put it up, but not too far up, and he was able to get it right on goal. A lot of those opportunities wind up going over the bar. This one stayed under the bar. It was just a absolutely stunning goal that he was able to put in, and that's just such a great play. And the way he read it, that's what I really like. He saw where Keaton was. He looked at the defense and said, I can go and make a difference in the box. And then they found him with a perfect cross. We've seen so little of this from New York City. This time it worked. It worked to perfection. And that's a brilliant goal.
Oh, and I'm glad you pointed out the service, because it was exceptional. Carrasquilla for Houston and Giacomakis for Atlanta, both with brilliant outside of the foot services right into the path, both leading to goals. One for Atlanta United, Giacomakis, and then the other for the Dynamo. And as I yesterday for my Sirius XM show, Roberto, I interviewed 2 academy coaches in MLS, a guy named Chris O'Neill with Inter Miami and Sam Castellanos with the Chicago Fire. And I pointed this out to them, and I said, 3 players did it over the weekend in MLS, because we were talking a lot about technique. And I said, not one of them was American. So I was challenging these guys. I said, we have to develop more players that, you're right. I mean, Fernandez would never have been able to serve that with his right peg. Never. With that kind of perfection and velocity. So he uses the outside of his left.
Easy peasy.
I'm sure he's done it 100 million times. And mostly
he looks so comfortable doing that. I mean, it just came naturally to him. It was so comfortable. It was natural. He didn't even give it a thought. It was just like, all right, I see him coming into the box. I'm trying this.
All right. So,
Easy.
we've talked about what it was a encouraging, energetic, feel-good moment to get the victory based on everything that happened during that match. Then you come to the realization, I don't know how much anyone could celebrate this, especially on the coaching staff, knowing that you don't have Keaton Parks at Cincinnati because of the red card, and you have 6 others going away on international duty during the international break. 3 teams in MLS, Roberto, 3 teams are off this weekend in MLS. Cincinnati losing 1 player, a good one, Miles Robinson, but that's it. New York City losing both their strikers and both their right
fullbacks.
So
they're right fullbacks.
Fullbacks, whatever. So let's go to Nick Cushing for both, and then we'll talk about what we think. So in my pregame show, which will air at 7:15 Saturday night ahead of the Cincinnati broadcast on our live commentary on our New York City FC network, I asked him first about, what are you doing up top at the striker position? So let's do striker first with Nick.
I think if anybody's prepared to play without a striker, it should be us, because we didn't have one for 24 games last season. So
that's right. You're seasoned in that area.
We have played Santi up there, and he does a good job as a false 9. We've also got Alonso Martinez that played a lot there in training before Jovan came, because we were looking for another number 9 early parts of pre-season, but Alonso has trained up there. And, we have a lot of wide players in the sense of Agustin Ojeda, Malachi Jones, Julian Fernandez, that we can, we could almost play 3 players inside and be fluid. So we have a lot of options.
Yeah. So, and the Jovan Mijatovic and Monsef Bakrar are the 2 strikers. Hey, one thing before we go on, Bakrar, I haven't heard anyone, and I haven't said it enough either. he's the one that drew the foul, which led to the Santi Rodriguez free kick. Kevin Long stepped up on Bakrar and made a nice little move to cut back against the grain and got taken down. So credit to Bakrar, who has done everything but score this year. And now let's see what he could do for Algeria.
10 shots in the last 2 games for him.
Yeah.
He and Santi both had 5 shots in the last game.
Well, it's chance creation.
Yeah.
And also chance creation equals finishing. That's the part that it still has to.
Yes, but I have another one for you, by the way, that I think is pretty cool. The last time New York City won a game when they were behind, or rather conceding the first goal, was October 2022 against Orlando City. That meant that the last 18 times that they allowed the first goal, they didn't win. So this is their first win in 19, I guess.
All right,
so that is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's amazing. So anyway, back to the strikers. So he talked about Santi being the false 9 last year. Kind of funny. He goes, if anybody knows how to, if any team knows how to play without a striker, it's us. And there's something to be said for that.
Yes, there is.
The issue, of course, always with Santi up there, especially against Matt Miazga, right, is the fact that if you're under pressure against Cincinnati and they're a high pressing team, and then they'll repress to win it back. Sometimes to get out of those jams, you just have to play the ball forward and get your striker to hold it up. Well, that's not going to be the forte for Santi against a guy like Matt Miazga. So that's the issue. But you don't have a lot of choices. I mean, even though Nick says you got a lot of options. I mean, Hannes Wolf and Santi Rodriguez are going to be on the field. Now, who's the third player in that mix, as far as trying to figure out what's going on up there?
I'd like to see, I'll tell you who I'd like to see. Yeah. I'd like to see Alonso Martinez get a chance, because that's something that he has done slightly in the past. It was something that was considered last year as a backup to Bakrar once he came. And so I want to see if he can actually do that or not. Plus, the guy deserves a chance to go out on the field. He hasn't done that yet. So let's go see what the Costa Rican can do.
At the Coachella Invitational, he was playing striker. They had already made that switch because, as Nick said in the clip, they had Mijatovic wasn't on. He wasn't in yet, so they needed somebody to back up Bakrar, and it's become Alonso Martinez.
And now the other question is, and I don't know this because I wasn't at practice yesterday, as I'm down here in Florida. You were at practice, and what's the situation with Thales Magno, who's been out with rehabbing a knee? So is he going to be able to go? Because I mean, that would be also somebody who at least played the position last year.
I don't have an answer because I actually wasn't at practice yesterday for a number of reasons.
What?
I did the interview from here. Well, I have another job in broadcasting, and I had interviews to do, and there was no place to do them up there, so I had to stay home. Practice, practice, by the way, is next Wednesday again next week. So just keep that in mind. So anyway,
I hate that they do that.
Oh, stop!
No, I do. It affects other work that I've got.
Well, you're not the only person, alive in this situation.
But I thought I was.
Plus, I guess
they put me in my place.
I think the periodization of how they're going about it is a lot more vital than whether you're caught in work.
So basically, what they're going to do is that if they're going to be playing away on the weekend, they're going to practice Wednesday, because that's been the.
Don't try to figure it out.
What's been happening.
Don't try to figure that out. Don't try. We'll ask people. Don't try to figure it out, because it's an exact science for them. It's an inexact science for us to try to sort it out without all the data and information. But anyway, so the thing that, but I did, I of course we're all wondering, well, what's going to happen at the back on the right side with both Micha Ilinic and Tavon Gray gone? Tavon, will he start tonight against the U.S. in the CONCACAF Nations League? That remains to be seen. We'll find out at about
Tavon against Pulisic? Pulisic? Tavon against Pulisic?
Pulisic.
Pulisic.
Can we pronounce his
What do I say?
name?
See, now I got all this C thing screwed up.
Pulisic.
Yes, Pulisic.
Pulisic.
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
Listen. So, so here's here's Nick on right back.
Got to deal with 6 players missing on the quote unquote international break. Of course, Major League Soccer scheduling. It's the way it is. A lot of teams don't have a break. Only 3 teams are off this weekend out of the 29 in MLS, which is crazy. Both your strikers, both your right backs, and your backup at left back and a reserve keeper. So they're missing. So let's go to right back first. Will we see Strahinja Tunasevic make his New York City debut? It looks like he's played a little fullback in his career, mostly central defense. What's your plan there?
Well, I think having the opportunity to look at him, this week is positive. We've also got Andres Jason, who's played there previously when I was assistant coach. Andres played there. I recall one game where he played Montreal at home in the early parts of 2022, I think. So we've got options. We've also got, the ability to play a different system. We can play a back three, which will give us the opportunity to play wing backs. Justin Hack's played in the back three as well, so that gives us the ability to play him down with Andres off the side. So we'll definitely look at Strahinja, is whether he's ready. He's not played in a while, so we'll look at him, see if he's ready, and if he is, I'd be fully confident in using him.
His last game, Roberto, and we're talking about Tanasevic, was December the 21st, 2023. So it has been a while since he's played a competitive match. And I think he kind of plays like this. I think he gets into the back of the wingers or strikers that he deals with. He was serving a yellow card suspension accumulation in the match prior to this December 21st match. And in that December 21st match, he got another yellow. So we may have a guy that, likes to mix it up a little bit, which is good. But we don't know. It'll depend on how he responds in training this week to however Nick wants to set it up.
It's definitely going to be interesting because we've never really seen a situation like this now for New York City. So I'm interested to see what Nick does. Also, they have to deal with Lucho Acosta, who nobody seems to be dealing with very well these days. I mean, he had an amazing goal against Monterrey in the Champions Cup, where he went through like 4 different Monterrey defenders before scoring. And then, he's been absolutely solid for Cincinnati all season long, although obviously it's only been 4 games.
Yeah. Well, Cincinnati offers, again, at home, it's such an advantage. That's not a secret. It's like always an advantage. But New York City lost both times at Cincinnati, including the U.S. Open Cup last year, and they've lost their last 3 to FC Cincinnati. So, Roberto, in the overall series, the all-time series, New York City won the first 5 games, but it's gone downhill since. Then there were 2 ties, and now New York City hasn't won a game including those ties in the last 5. So, and not probably a coincidence that Pat Noonan joined the fray when the good times started to roll for FC Cincinnati. They had a crew in there before him, a Dutch crew that was starting with Jaap Stam, their head coach. That was just, it was a nightmare.
Horrific. It was horrific. But here, one of my favorite all-time New York City FC games was played against Cincinnati. And that was that crazy game
5-2?
Where Cincinnati went ahead. No. The one that where Cincinnati went ahead in Cincinnati. They went ahead 3-0.
Oh, 4-4.
And then they came back. New York City scored 3 goals in stoppage time in the first half, tied it at 3, went ahead 4-3, and then Cincinnati came back and tied it at 4. So that was one of my favorite games because that was just absolute. There was just craziness that game.
It was nuts. Oh, that was wonderful. Brenner
you
had a
wanted
hat
New York
trick.
City to get the win, but
Brenner had the hat trick.
Come down,
Yeah, Brenner with a hat trick in that game. I thought you were going to say the 5-2 New York City win. I think that was in New York when New York City scored all 7 goals. I always said Eber had the hat trick. Eber had a brace, but he also scored for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And who had the other own goal? I can't remember. It was I can't remember, but it was New York City scored all 7 that game. The 5-2.
I would have to look it up. Give me a second, and I can actually find it.
All right.
I can actually, let me see. Give me a second here, and we'll see. So
Well,
that
before
was
we get, while you're looking,
4-4 game. On the
while you're
4-4
looking,
game.
let me just give some miscellaneous MLS. Okay, just
Okay,
focus
go.
on.
I already have one thing, but go ahead.
Well, forget the 4-4 game. We're focused on the Eber hat trick game where he scored one for them, and we're trying to figure out who was the other own goal. I want to Portland. This is MLS miscellaneous, is I guess what I'll call this. In the first 3 games, Portland. I don't know how closely you looked at this. They had 9 shots on goal in their first 3 games and 8 goals. And then at Houston, 4 shots on goal, no goals in a 1-0 loss. Excuse me. So I thought that was pretty interesting statistically from Portland. Let me
it's starting to even out because they're not good enough to score 8 goals on 9 shots. I mean, on goal. They're not that good. That's not a criticism. Nobody's that good. Manchester City isn't that good. Okay, so nobody really does that. So you expect that statistic to even out as the season goes. Okay, so I got 2 things for you. On the 4-4 game, because I'm on this now, Brenner had a hat trick.
I said that already.
Cincinnati.
I said that already.
And Eber, the reason I'm bringing this up is because Eber had 2 goals. So Tylus Magno scored in the 45th, Eber in the 45th plus 2, and then the 45 plus 7 was the tying goal. So that was that. And then on the 5-2 game, let us see. So Ibeaga had an own goal. Eber had an own goal.
Oh, Ibeaga. That's it.
Yeah, and the other goals were Mitrica, Heber at 2 and the 17th and 49th, Ismael Tajuri-Shradi, and Maxi Morales in the 90th.
All right.
That's what that one was. And that was a Yankee Stadium, if I believe. Yes.
Back in the days when New York City could score twice for the other team and still come away with a rout.
Not worry about it.
The bad Cincinnati teams. Dallas, I remember you always harping on the supporters in Dallas, or Dallas in terms of their promotion or trying to bring in more of the Latin community. They've had 3 consecutive home sellouts, Roberto. So I wanted to bring this up for you. But 2 of those they lost. They're not getting results. So I mean, if you're packing a place, man, you got to win. So hopefully the Dallas supporters keep coming out, and because I think Dallas will eventually turn it around. Lucho Acosta, did you see this game-winning free kick against New England under the wall? So the New England wall jumped into the air, and he struck it under the wall. I had a great chat with Ike Opar, and I know you know Ike.
Oh, yeah.
And a former Sporting KC defender, and now he's an assistant for Sporting KC too. And he's really working with the backs in that area of the field. And I asked him, what do you do? Do you put one of those players prone behind the wall? And he said, no. And he said, if you're going to jump, you have to read the approach of the shooter and how you can tell whether he's going to strike it low, position of his foot, position of his body, or if he's going to try to go over the wall. And you could see New England, 2 of the players in the wall actually turned their backs and they just jumped in the air, and he boop right underneath. Matty Lawrence, my broadcast partner, says 650 pro games in England. He was taught, stand on your toes, make yourself as tall as possible, do not leap in the air. And Matty, of course, is not a proponent of laying somebody down behind the wall. I'm not either. I'm not a fan of that.
I understand it. I don't mind it because it does prevent teams from going underneath. If you have somebody there, you're not going to go low, and I think it stops it. I mean, you're not. If you needed that player to be marking somebody that desperately, then something is off. But I think it's fine to lay somebody down because then you're cutting off that option. You're only saying he's either going goalie side or he's going over the wall side, and that's what he's going to do. I'm fine with laying somebody down.
Well, I think
until they find a way to take advantage of somebody laying down, and then that's going to cost them some way that they're going to do a couple of passes, run into space, that sort of thing. And that player, had he been standing, would have been the difference between somebody getting a good shot or not getting a good shot, then fine. But otherwise, I don't have a problem at all with laying somebody down. I think you'd be able to defend fine without that player being on somebody, and it prevents that happening.
Well,
You're not
Parr,
going under the wall.
well, here's Eichel Parr, who's played a few more games than you and has been in a lot of walls, and Matty Lawrence, who's been in a lot of walls. Their point is, if Lucha Acosta is going to put that ball in the upper left corner with perfection from that close range up over the wall, and his point was, how many players can actually do that? So why be concerned with that? Just put everybody where they need to be, make yourself as tall as possible in the wall, and then let it rip, and then,
because it gives them a little bit more of an angle if you're not jumping. It gives them a little bit more. I mean, it's a difference of a foot.
The guy laying behind the wall could be used for a quick counterattack to go for. How many times have you seen goals scored, right, when free kicks or corner kicks are muffed or it doesn't go quite well because of a counterattack situation? So
I've seen corner kicks. I don't really remember a free kick going awry to the point of where they countered and they scored. I have definitely seen corner kicks because everybody is absolutely out of position, especially when they take people from one side and put them to the other side to take a
that
kick.
doesn't matter.
It is.
That doesn't matter. That's just awareness. You set yourself up for protection. If a guy can't adjust to playing on the right or the left in a moment of a counterattack, and obviously committing a foul is sometimes the option there. So, well, we agree to disagree on a couple of points there. But either way, it's an opinion, and obviously there's coaches that lay somebody behind the wall, and that's their choice, and that's why it's fun to talk about the game.
Well, that's like the same thing as people putting, coaches putting players on the post on corner kicks.
Well, I don't see any on the men's side. I don't see anybody doing that anymore.
But you like it though,
huh?
But you like it though.
I do, because when there's a goal scored, and it happens, somewhat frequently, where a guy could have been standing there and just, head it off the line or clear it off the line, and it squeezes inside the post. I always say, well, but the counter to that is, well, what's the percentage of goals scored in those areas versus if you bring those guys out in a zonal situation and they're clogging up other areas, are you preventing it? So I'm sure the data will be very specific with that, and I don't have that kind of data, And
what was your thought on the way El Salvador, and I forgot who else, defended a Messi free kick by putting guys on either post and the goalie, more towards the middle?
I showed that. I took a screenshot and I showed it to Nick, and I said, and he had seen it, and he goes, "Well, it's interesting." I had little issue with it because it made sense to me, because you're kind of clogging the area, and if the goalkeeper is confident enough and can find enough space in there, it's just all about the vision. It's all about the vision. But if you're clocking the players in, there's less target area for Messi to shoot at. Really, I mean, he's got to really be perfect.
Right. So I have two questions. So now I have another question for you, Coach. Do you take your two tallest players, which are probably Keaton Parks and Thiago Martins, right? You take those and you put them on the post, on either post, because they're going to be able to probably jump and get as close to the bar in case the ball is there as possible? Or do you keep them on the wall to make sure that Messi has less of a target? Which way do you go?
Well, you got to put him in the wall. The only time I take the big center back out of the wall, or the tall player who's good in the air, is more on a conventional set piece, where you, in the event that maybe it's going to be a service to the back post, you want to have a strong header there. You don't want to have, Santi Rodriguez there, so it's, I don't know if that answers your question, but I'll put him in the wall in that situation, both of them.
All right. That answers the question.
Okay.
That answers the question.
Hey, one other thing.
Ask you who you'll put on the post if you do that.
One other thing.
That's a good one for Nick, though. That's a good question for Nick.
Yeah.
If he decides
he was intrigued by it. I don't know if they'll do that, but we'll find out in a couple of weeks if Messi has a free kick close to goal, what they do.
Well, hopefully he's playing, right? We don't know. He's not playing for Argentina this week. So, and New York City travels down here to Fort Lauderdale for their next game in 8 days. or 9 days, whatever it is. So we'll see.
March 30th, a week from Saturday.
Yep.
Dejan Joveljic, he's a forward for the LA Galaxy, and he became the 8th player in league history and the first since Tati Castellanos in 2021 to score in at least 4 consecutive games to start the season. So I brought that up because we get to say Tati's name. And Brian McBride, Columbus, only player to score in 5 straight to open the season. That was way back in '98. So we'll see. I don't know who the Galaxy play. I guess I should have had all the information, but
that's okay. We could always find that if you need. Speaking of Tati, there was some sort of rumor on Twitter that he was getting his American citizenship or something like that.
Yeah,
I asked Tati. I did get a chance to speak to Tati and via text, and he said no, that's not happening.
Okay.
Which didn't make any sense that it could be happening because we would have to be in the States. You can't go and get your American citizenship, right, while you're outside of the United States. So that should have been the first telltale sign. Ask anybody who's become an American citizen what the U.S. government thinks about them applying for citizenship while they're someplace else or leaving the country. They don't. They take away your passport. Yeah. If you're in the process of getting American citizenship, they take your passport. You can't leave the country. So, for instance, my broadcast partner, Ariel Judas, 2 years ago, he couldn't go to Montreal for a playoff game because he was in the midst of getting his American citizenship. And that's why I worked with Beto Mora, because he couldn't come. And in some places close and almost as American as Montreal is. Now they're going to hate me in Montreal.
For real. Well, they're more French there, I think, than
yes, they are.
All right, Roberto. Hey, let's kick it around. What do you say? U.S. Open Cup, the much maligned U.S. Open Cup. That is, if you're in the executive offices of Major League Soccer, the U.S. Open Cup will be played tonight at Montclair State University, where FC Motown, an NPSL team, will play host to New York City FC 2. The MLS Next Pro side for New York City is playing this game, and not the big club, not the first team that has a 5-5-2 overall record. Those 2 ties were losses in penalties, Cosmos and Orlando City. So, and thank you, Shane.
I'm sorry, what was the record you gave? Because I got a correction on mine. Oh. US, it's 4-5-2.
Oh, 4-5. Yeah, I thought 5 was
4-5-2. We got a correction. Sean sent a correction. I'm sorry if I didn't send it to you. I apologize.
Okay. No problem.
And the 2 losses outside, so 3 losses are to the Red Bulls, and the other 2 losses to the Cosmos, and weren't draws, right? That, and then lost in penalty kicks, which was the Cosmos and Orlando. The other 2 losses were the Cosmos in the second game. That was the mixed Diskerud farewell game, and then they lost last year to Cincinnati.
Right. So it really hasn't gone particularly well in the U.S. Open Cup for the first team, but that has nothing to do with why they didn't bail out and throw their second team in.
No, they did not.
They got a call directly from MLS, and MLS said, boys, you're playing your MLS Next Pro side in the U.S. Open Cup, along with 8 other MLS Next Pro teams that have attached to MLS clubs. And then there's 2 independent teams that are also playing. 11 total MLS Next Pro sides. Only 8 first teams from MLS, including Houston, as they'll go in to defend their U.S. Open Cup championship. And I kicked off the broadcast, Roberto, by saying, why is the 2 team playing? And I don't know, and I really don't know. It hasn't been explained well. Let's just put it that way.
I'll explain it to you. It's very easy. They volunteered, army style. You sending your second teams, and you are sending your first teams.
Why?
And it was arbitrary. It's arbitrary.
No, but why?
Because a lot of these teams wanted to play their first teams, and they weren't allowed to. They said, no, you're playing your second team, and you can't reinforce it. Because it's
No,
arbitrary.
the bigger question,
That's the answer.
but why is MLS taking this tact? But give me one moment, because people within the New York City Football Club certainly have agreed with this side of things. That is, let the club decide how they're going to handle congestion, because congestion is the only thing we saw in that press release, and it doesn't really make sense. You know why it doesn't make sense? I'm going to tell you why. Minnesota United, listen to this. Minnesota United has a friendly scheduled on the same night that Minnesota 2 is playing in the U.S. Open Cup. How screwed up is that?
Yeah, well,
How screwed up is that?
I know. So the reason is that MLS is trying to control as much as everything that's going to bring money into them directly. So it's Leagues Cup. They've got to play Champions Cup. So they figured that they're going to try to strong arm, and I think that they misread the room. I think that they really misread the room with U.S. Soccer, and I'm happy that U.S. Soccer basically said, no, you're not fully getting away with this, and they came to a compromise. But next year, they better play all their number one teams. This is absurd. It's wrong. And the other thing that should happen is this, that the agreement should be, not only does MLS play their first teams, but it also should come with, and MLS should demand that U.S. Soccer, put some money behind this tournament. Go out and really sell it well, and go and put some money behind it, because they've never really, emphasized the tournament, right? It's always been a sore spot. We've argued this for a long time, and we said, you got to put some more behind this, because it is the oldest trophy in sports in the United States. And that includes the Stanley Cup and whatever other trophy, the Super Bowl, obviously, because that didn't start until, 1968 or 67. So, this is the oldest trophy.
I'm going to trump you on it. It was 66.
Okay, 66, whatever. Well, it wasn't called the Super Bowl then. The first year that it was actually called the Super Bowl, I believe, was the Jets year, which is the third one. The first two were really called that. It was called the AFL, NFL championship, and then later on readjusted.
Yeah, you're right.
But this is, I think, an important tournament. It should be treated as an important tournament, and U.S. Soccer has to put money and marketing behind it to make it, again, a relevant tournament. And they've got to find a way, right, negotiating with Major League Soccer to make sure that Major League Soccer has all their teams in. And if it was up to me, I would have MLS teams traveling to the smaller clubs every time. So if they're playing a USL club or whatever minor league club that then MLS team is on the road every time. And what does that do? That increases, that makes
the joy of the game.
Else more aware of MLS.
It's about the game. The game should be like sacrimonious. It's the game is the most important thing. That's what is the most important thing.
Purist.
I'm sorry,
it's
not
about money.
No, I know. So Leagues Cup. So you're protecting Leagues Cup because you're afraid there's no trust of your teams. What you think they're going to put out the MLS Next Pro team to play against Pachuca? What are you kidding? I mean, it makes little sense. You don't trust the sporting departments of the teams in the league, and it's money because Leagues Cup is your baby. Not the U.S. Open Cup, and that started last year. You could hear the commissioner slowly.
He started about the fields and things like that.
Yeah, the whole. And
crazy.
To support your point about the MLS team should go to the lower league teams. How about I don't know if you saw, but I watched like half of the game. Vermont, and they beat Lexington. So here's Vermont, a team with college kids on their spring break. Right, playing against Lexington, which is a League One team, USL League One team. They train every day, professional. Yeah. And Vermont wins the game. There's 2,500 people at the University of Vermont, and it was classic. I mean, the lighting was poor. It was fantastic.
Those are games that you remember. Those are memorable games. And you want to see the small teams being able to upset the big teams. You want to see that because that's what makes a tournament memorable. You don't want chalk happening all the time.
Yeah. All right. Now, so New York City, I'm going to head to Montclair State tonight. So come and say hi if you're going to the game.
I'm not, but yes, you are. I'll be on a plane.
So again, the opponent is FC Motown. The kickoff is at 7:30. I'm going to go to Montclair early. They've got some really nice, cool cafes in Montclair. It's a really nice town, pretty hip town.
It really
Montclair,
is.
New Jersey. And so now this is the story of the U.S. Open Cup. Other than Vermont, I would say. I guess there's some things going on out west too that I'm not monitoring quite as closely. But we were monitoring this one. Look at this tweet from Sasha Kleshtin, who played for the Des Moines Menace. And last night, they defeated Capo FC, which is a West Coast team, and that's where the game was played. And you see, Kleshtin played the full match. It went to extra time. And so he got an assist on one of the goals in the regular play, and he also converted his penalty, and his team advanced.
Awesome.
It's really.
Is he going to be able to make it to the studio in Harlem on Saturday?
Maybe with some assistance. I don't know if it'll be a wheelchair but I'm sure he's a little.
They have some oxygen there on the side for him.
So Kleshtin, who's the all-time assist man for the New York Red Bulls, and we've seen a lot of them over the years because of those derbies, Red Bulls against New York City FC, where he and BWP got together on several occasions against New York City FC. So that's pretty cool. And is there anything else on the U.S. Open Cup? No, don't really have anything else, Roberto. How about this? And I found this interesting because it came from the New York Yankees Twitter page, X page. So it's about the summer of soccer coming up. But look, the New York Yankees posted this, which it is at Yankee Stadium. And New York City also posted it. But I thought it was interesting that the Yankees, July 27th, we got Man City playing Milan. So we get to see Pulisic and then all those great Man City players. And then the very next day, it's the League's Cup opener for New York City. How about that?
Yeah. So, the New York City was advertising it almost like as if it was a double header sort of thing. And it's interesting to see the Yankees only advertise one of them. Anyway, Yankees 20% owners of New York City FC.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. What else? USL championship.
We got the U.S. national team.
We'll get to that in a second. USL Championship open this weekend. A special mention to Stephen Turnbull, who started the game for Rhode Island, and they got a draw in their first match. And that's a cool story because, and you go back to the U.S. Open Cup, the very first, what year? 1912. The very first U.S. Open Cup final was played in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. How's that? So
that's nice.
So they had a packed house. They played in a small facility. It was like, I don't know, 5,600, and for this Rhode Island game on the weekend. So, but good for Steve
Turnbull. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, get out. The guy that he drove. I just remember having a feature with him, and he drove 4 to 5 miles every day round trip when he was with the 2 team because he lived on Long Island, traffic and everything else, and he couldn't afford to get a place. Have 2 places. He's on the 2 team. And he eventually earned a first team contract, and that was, that was a really, important
moment. Also forced a little bit by circumstance, right? Because of the fact that that they were down players and he was the only one available. And so, but he played well enough to earn it. And it's too bad that he wasn't able to stick around, but hopefully he'll be back in MLS soon. But it's good that he's got that he's got a team in Rhode Island where he's going to play a lot. And hopefully he gets to improve his game to the point of where some MLS team goes and says, I have to make you an offer that you can't refuse.
Boy, that would be nice because according to Commissioner Don Garber, the MLS Next Pro, if athletes aren't playing there, there's really no place else left for them to go in order to develop into pros. And
really? I didn't know that.
Oh,
wow.
Interesting, right?
Like the rest of the world isn't around? Really?
Well, the USL's not around, and you wonder how some of these people, let me see if I can pull the exact quote up for you, Roberto. I don't think I sent this to Shane. I meant to, but here, I'm going to read it for you. And this is from the Athletic article they did a little bit of a roundtable, so they had a lot of questions for Don Garber, who said, these are kids, and he's talking about young men who are looking to play and develop and eventually become first-team players, or maybe even, into a higher level league. These are kids that, if not for MLS Next Pro, I don't know what they would be doing, Garber said. They might not be playing soccer. They certainly wouldn't be in America. Look,
I don't know what's going on with Don.
We know you're protecting
really
your
don't.
product. No, you're protecting your product. It's a business and you do that. But if you're, again, for the good of the game, look, there's no question that in some of these situations, players, look, and we're calling games for the New York City Football Club. They have Matt Pilkington guiding their 2 team. He's a wonderful coach and developer of kids, and we've seen that. But I'm saying in some cases, it's better off for somebody to be playing in the USL. It just is.
Here's my take on this. I mean, obviously, MLS Pro is a great thing. Okay, it's going to help a lot of players. We've seen a lot of kids come up and being able to play with the first team, and it's a great thing. And there's nothing wrong with it. To try to tell us that what we see with our eyes doesn't happen and doesn't exist is absurd.
Yeah.
And don't treat us like fools when it comes to that. That a USL doesn't exist, NISA doesn't exist, that there are no leagues outside of the United States where somebody can go play. I mean, come on, don't do that to us. We're not idiots. Don't treat us like that. If you want to be able to promote your league and your second league, and we're happy to do that as well, right? Because we think it's a positive thing. But don't tell us it's the only game in town when there's another freaking casino across the way.
Yep, I know, and it was that quote's taken out of context, but I read it thoroughly, and it's very accurate, and it really does reflect, what he thought about and what he thinks about MLS Next Pro, which is a valuable, the pathway. You go to MLS Next,
100%.
MLS Next Pro, and you're doing it all within what the first team coach really, the style and developing, so that when you step on the field for them, eventually, if that happens for you, that you're comfortable with the product. But it's just it's a really unfortunate thing to say.
You can make the argument, okay, and it can be believable or not, but you can make the argument that you could say, we believe that the best path to be able to become a full-time professional is through MLS Pro. But don't say it's the only thing, because it's not true.
Sure.
It's absurd. And we've seen players from USL not only make MLS, we've seen players from USL go abroad, directly abroad, and go to the national team. But let's not say that those leagues don't exist and don't do anything for anyone, because it's not true.
No, it's untrue.
I mean, look at Diego Luna, who's now a mainstay in RSL, and he went straight from USL into the national team program as a U20, was a standout player for
Real Monarchs.
For the US program, US 20 CONCACAF US 20 World Cup, and then the same thing for the Olympic team. And he's probably the most dangerous forward that that RSL has. Okay, and he's on the Olympic team again, right? On these games that they're going to play. So he was called in. He came from USL directly. So don't say that it doesn't exist. Basically, it's just not right.
All right, we're running out of time. Yes, U.S. men play tonight against Jamaica. It's the semifinals. You got Mexico and Panama in the other semi. So everybody seems to be hoping for U.S.-Mexico in the final. But don't assume that. No. But I would say if you're going to that casino across the street and placing a bet, you're going to bet U.S.-Mexico for that Sunday final. And then, Roberto, next week, let's break that. Let's make sure that we're certain to break down what we saw and what we thought. Good luck to Tavon Gray and all the other young men for New York City FC that are away on the international duty. I'm going to leave with another quote. I'm not going to have a quote every week, Roberto. I will say that. But this one comes from Alfred Adler, and he is a psychologist. And his quote is, "The chief danger in life is that you may take too many precautions." And he went against the theory of Sigmund Freud, because he listened to people to reflect on their place in society, and he heard lots of trepidation. So this motivated him to help individuals grow comfortable with risks because, as he put it, adventures and unforeseen joys await those who say yes to risk. New York City needs to risk at Cincinnati. Get your fullbacks forward or your wingbacks or however you're going to play this thing, and let's see what you can do on the road against Cincinnati. Get more chances than they do because you're willing to take the risk.
I thought for a second you were going to quote Alfred E. Newman.
Well, that's coming up in subsequent NYCFC views. All right, everybody.
90% of our audience is saying, what? Whom? Go look it up.
Yeah, go look it up.
Go look it up.
So we've been live for the second straight week here on NYCFC Views. For Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks. If you're going to the Montclair State University hosting this U.S. Open Cup game tonight, maybe I'll see you. And good luck to NYCFC too. And have a good day, everybody.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.